Three,
Three,
two,
two,
one.
one.
Launch to success with Vera V.
Hi, I'm Vera V. Welcome to my podcast, Launch to Success. For this episode, I have a guest named Cru with over 600,000 collective followers who grew to 248,000 followers in 2.5 weeks. And the most impressive thing, I think, he has run a mile every morning for almost 2,000 days. So this episode is all about how to stay disciplined in life and in socials. Cru, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Cru Mahoney. I'm 23 years old. I'm from North Carolina, and my most shining aspect on social media would be my daily mile. So some people know me as the Daily Mile guy. But yeah, other than that, I'm looking forward to chatting and getting into it. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
For sure. I'm so excited for this episode in particular because I don't know if I told you, but I had a bunch of people send me the one video on Instagram that I think has like 30 million now.
Yeah,
And
I
they're like,
think
oh my
it's
gosh.
yeah, I think it's 35 million or 34 million or something.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
When did you post it?
I posted that, I believe it was maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago, around there. And yeah, it decided to blow up on me a little bit. It was pretty surprising because, I mean, before that, every video I posted on Instagram felt like I was just throwing it away. And it was wild to see those kind of numbers. So it was pretty cool.
That's crazy. And over 200,000 followers growing in like 2 weeks is insane. So, first, let's do a little recap of your content creation journey and what it's been like so far.
Yeah. So, I had this lifestyle essentially that I was doing. I wasn't documenting this thing, and I had just built my morning routine to be something that was challenging me. That was something that I didn't necessarily want to do, but I found value in being consistent in that. And so, with the daily mile, the daily running, I got up to 1,300 days in a row of doing that, and I always kind of had this frustration because I felt like through that journey in my own life, kind of this, you know, self-awareness, isolated journey, I guess, I felt like I was learning so much, not only about myself, but the world as well. And, it was frustrating to not be able to share that. You have all this information and all this perspective that you feel like you've built up, but then you can't really talk to anybody about it, and you can't share that. And it's hard to be in that position. And, meanwhile, I'm seeing people on social media post stuff that's not even valuable. They're just, goofing off, and they're making a living out of this. And I'm thinking, gosh, well, how could I do something like that? And, it would be frustrating to think, oh, well, I could do something like this easily, but I wasn't making content. And, the only way that people are going to see what I was doing and hear about the messages that, I learned and all these lessons, was if I kind of put my foot down and started making videos. So essentially, I used these daily things like the daily running to basically be the framework for this content. If I'm going to be out there every day as it is, I might as well make a video about it every day and, write every day and try and really translate kind of that language you have with yourself in your own mind, turn that into something that other people can understand, and make it something helpful and valuable. So, that was really the start of that whole content creating process.
So then you started, because you were on day 1,300, now you're on day 1,900 something. So it's been 2 years?
Yeah, yep. So about 2 years, and gosh, I think it's 1986 maybe today. I have it in my phone, but the days get jumbled up. I'm always just adding one to the list. So yeah, it's somewhere around there.
Mhm.
But um, it's kind of crazy how each one of those days for that 2 years was essentially another day one. It doesn't matter how many you've done in the past, you still have to do the one tomorrow. And I think that's really the virtue of doing something like that, because in a lot of spaces, maybe social media or maybe business, once you've reached a certain point, then it kind of encourages you to coast and to not really be reaching for that next step and continuing that same effort. But with something like this, it doesn't matter how many times you've done it in a row. I mean, you're not going to continue that unless you do it again. So I think that's kind of the equalizing aspect of doing a daily discipline like that, which I think is really cool.
And I think sharing it is brilliant too, because I think a lot of creators, when they want to start sharing on social media, for them it's a very big challenge to overcome. Because then they're like, okay, so I guess I have to like spend 2 hours filming. But if you already do something and you just document yourself doing it, and plus I feel like when you're running in the morning, it feels less lonely too, I assume. So it's not just like you in the dark in the cold. It's also
Yeah,
like your phone with you, somebody else with you, kind of. But
yeah,
if you already do something and you just document it and then
yeah.
you just post it, then it's like content creation should be easy, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cool to have something like that where you can just make content about what you're already doing. I mean, I think that's kind of the dream, is to make a living off of living, in a sense. You have a certain lifestyle that maybe you've learned something, or maybe it's, even just entertaining. That's a lot of people, and they turn that into their job. But I think there definitely is a difficult aspect to it, which is, you kind of have to treat it like a full-time job in some cases to turn that into your full-time job, but you're doing that while you're not getting paid anything. And maybe you do have a full-time job, which, was my case. I was already working, 40, 50 hours a week, and then working all this time on making content on top of that, while also actually holding up the disciplines and the routines that I was actually doing. And, you know, oftentimes I would think, dang, why am I making content on these really difficult things? Because, you know, editing and filming, all that kind of stuff is hard as it is, but I also have to do those things. I'll try and make, people ask about what I eat a lot, and making a what I eat in a day video is so daunting to me, because just cooking and eating and organizing it for myself is already such a task. I'm like, dang, now I got to set up my camera and a freaking light and do all this. It's quite a bit of work. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely interesting.
Do you have any advice for people who also want to start sharing content, but they're also working a 9 to 5? Because I noticed the big thing with that is like, okay, you look at it, you're working 40, 50 hours a week. Technically, everybody has time. But for
Yeah,
me, I think the biggest realization was that because you do have a full time job, but it's so mentally draining in a sense where you're just like, you don't really have any creative capacity after like a long workday. So, do you
yeah.
have any tips for overcoming that and still making time to pursue your passion, like content creation?
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to is consistency, because, you know, of course I'm making a new video every day, right? But it's kind of based along the same framework. I know the gist of what I'm going to be making, and kind of figuring out what that is for you is super helpful, because, you know, if I had to come up with a new concept, a new video type every single day, I mean, that would be horrible. And that's why, I really like the daily kind of thing, because again, it's not, I'm not guessing what the shot is going to look like, or what the topic is going to be on. I kind of know where I do it, where I'm going to film, and then I just have to write and kind of fill in the blanks of the actual message that I want to share. But, again, kind of fitting that into your routine is a lot better than saying, okay, I need to make a new video every day, and the options are endless for what that video could be about. I would say pick, pick a lane, pick a subject, pick a thing that you kind of want it to revolve around in a way, and then you can get good at repeating that over time.
I think it's a great idea because one of the biggest, I think, problems that I see working with content creation clients who want to grow, but maybe they're aspiring or like in the very beginning stages,
Yeah.
is a lot of creators seem to be very frustrated about not getting views or getting followers. But it's because they choose a topic, it like doesn't work out for like 2 days. They choose another one, they choose a third. But for you, it's literally years in the making. And now it's doing so well. Like you go to your Instagram, everything's in the hundreds of thousands of views. So you're really getting seen. But definitely a big part of that is just being so disciplined, so consistent with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it never seems like everyone else is going through that same just hardship in the content realm. Um, because like you said, I mean, I was very consistent with it, and I felt like that was the only thing that I could really control, right? Was my consistency and the quality that I wanted each video to have. Um, but I mean, I was putting out videos every day. I mean, I posted twice a day for years and years. And, I built up a big following on TikTok before Instagram. But even now, I mean, TikTok is garbage. I have, 300 something thousand followers, but I'll post a video, 2,000 views, maybe 3,000 views. And,
Mm-hmm.
that is just tough to see because again, you put all that work into making your videos as good as possible and trying to treat it like your job and bring value, and when it just gets thrown away like that, it is tough. And Instagram was a whole another level of that. I did the same exact thing, and posting on Instagram was even more of a slap to the face. I mean, and my videos, they might have a certain amount of views now, but they've been very similar in terms of, what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, my writing and all that for quite a long time. And I mean, 900 views, 1,000 views. And I'm thinking, dang, I am putting in as much work as I possibly can and trying to make this as good as possible. And, you know, the belief I had in what I was talking about was there. And I think that's the hard part, when you really feel confident about what you're talking about. You feel passionate about those things you're discussing, and it just doesn't catch on. And you're like, oh my gosh. And,
Yeah.
the amount of times I've wanted to just stop making the videos, because I'm going to be out there doing the things that I'm documenting regardless, whether there's a video or not. But, I was like, I might as well just go back to running. Like, there's no point in continuing to make these, but you keep going at the chance of that reaching more people, at the chance of helping somebody, or that actually working out one day. And, if I was to stop that, then it would have been 100% chance that it didn't work out. So, I was willing to kind of wager the hard work and keep chipping away at it.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that concept. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I've heard of it. I haven't. It's a book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like a self-development one. I recommend the first 3 chapters. Anything else is just kind of very repetitive, so it's just no point to it. But it has a concept of the melting point of ice, for example, because it melts at 32 Fahrenheit. So like 33, 34, 35, 36, nothing. As soon as it's 32, it starts melting. So I feel like it's kind of a similar concept for social media as well. But then do you feel like for your personal journey in content creation, because it did take for Instagram to start taking off 2 years, that's like a long time. Do you
Yeah.
feel like maybe if you had set yourself like a also these things are crazy.
Yeah. I can hear him. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it's just I don't know. Well, anyway, but if you had set yourself like maybe a very specific goal of, oh, I want to gain, I don't know, say 50,000 followers in the next like 3 months, and I'm willing to do like any type of content to get there. Do you feel like that's something that would have resonated with you as well? Because I feel like if you have a time frame, it just kind of becomes easier in a sense, like mentally almost, because you know that okay, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just pivot.
Mm. Yeah. I don't know, because I think I'm satisfied that the views and things are doing well now in response to the stuff that I've been doing all this time. There were so many times where I was trying to figure out why my content is bad, because essentially it was, in a way, if good meant doing well, and it wasn't doing well, so I thought, oh, it must be bad, but again, I had that belief in what I was talking about, and I felt as if the content itself was undeniable, but it just wasn't proven yet. And I think that's not only a content lesson, but I mean, even just in life, it's difficult when the current moment is proving the opposite of what you're doing turning out well. When you're trying to make something happen and right now it's going horribly, I mean, you don't have much of a say in improving that, oh, it's gonna be great one day. But if you actually want it to be, then you kind of have to keep going along that path. But I mean, it's just really difficult, and it's different with different subject matters and things that people will catch on to. And I don't know, it just took a long time. It took a dang long time for that to kick in.
Yeah, but I'm really glad that it did. But then, okay, another question I had, and it's about your morning routine. Because I feel like once you have, because you're a very disciplined person, like it's very obvious. I feel like
Yeah.
running for 2,000 days in a row is no joke. But you feel like with your morning routine, I feel like it's definitely helped your content creation in a sense where you already had that discipline, right? And you're going to do it anyway. So
Yeah.
when you created it, because it's kind of a challenging one, like you run and then you do an ice bath, maybe before, I'm not sure the exact order. But
Yeah.
before you started your morning routine, was it just kind of like you wake up, do whatever, or did you gradually come to it? Or like one day you're like, you know what, like we're doing this.
Yeah, I definitely, it was definitely a gradual thing. I started the morning mile as just a 30-day kind of challenge. And, I'm just the
30
type of
days.
person. Yeah, 30 days.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah. So, I did it as that just, I really started because I hated running and figured there would be some sort of benefit to kind of just facing that fear almost every day. But, it's something that was incorporated gradually in terms of all the different things. And, I have a hard time going back on something that is difficult but provides some sort of value or improvement in my own life. And, that's really what I saw. I hit the 30 days and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do tomorrow? Just not get up and run? I mean, I gotta just keep going with this because I don't want to see the past version of myself be better than the current version of myself. And, if I stop trying, if I stop putting in that work, then that would be the case. And, I really didn't want to see that. And so, the content kind of going into that, I mean, it's no problem making it, right? It's no problem filming the video and doing all that and putting in the work. But again, when it's going horribly on the results side of things, that's when it's really difficult. It's now when I post a video on Instagram, I know it's going to be seen by a lot of people and do relatively well. It's a lot easier to click post than before when, I would spend this time writing in my notes and I would, pour my entire mind into one chunk of text and try and make it something valuable. And then, oh, I might as well just delete this just as well as posting it on Instagram. Um, but again, I mean that discipline and the willingness to just put that work in, no matter what the result is. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way to go, and it takes a good little bit.
Hmm. But I feel like, from what I've heard, at least in experience, I think you grow the absolute most when you are facing the challenges, like on the results side. Because I feel like one part of it is really daunting. It's like, oh, I'm not really going to get seen. But I think the flip side is you have nothing to lose. Like, you can kind of do anything. Where I feel like once you gain more of a following, you're like, okay, like this is going to do well, but this probably isn't going to do well if you have various types of content. So
Yeah,
I guess there are two sides to it, but definitely with the consistency and putting in the work, no matter what the viewer count is or the follower count, but just keep going because you feel like you have a message to share that you're passionate about. That takes work.
yeah, and I think it's interesting because I'm so stubborn about the actual routine itself. I'm not willing to change that because in reality, that's what's more important to me than making the video a certain way. I tried a lot of content with the ice bath stuff for a while, and this is before, the followers kind of blew up and stuff. So I might revisit because it's fun to make those. But, I was trying to make something out of that because I thought, oh, this is a pretty interesting topic. Maybe I can make something creative out of it and whatever. And, you know, my ice bath setup, for example, is just not very conducive to views. I do it at 5 in the morning. I have people that live with me. That doesn't work too well to be making a bunch of noise and slamming ice everywhere and splashing and making it, super upbeat, high energy video. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to do it in the middle of the day just to improve the content. I need to fit the content around the routine because that's the actual important part to me. And, you know, I think that's more of a delayed gratification. But if you think about the people that are the most successful, the absolute pinnacle of content creation, these people aren't changing everything they're doing to fit the content. They're fitting the content to the way they do things because that's how they want their life to go. I don't want people to know me for, oh, just a funny style of video and, all this crazy editing. I want people to know how I actually do things, how I actually think. And I think that's really important to hold on to, even when, maybe it's not seeming to work. And of course, you kind of have to pivot and change and try new things with creating content, but not to the extent that you're letting go of that. An example of that in my trying to grow this was I used to make videos that I was trying to have make sense for everybody. I was trying to have it cater to a large audience, and it turned out that nobody would see it. But when I started making videos for, one specific person in mind, maybe my past self, writing to myself of the past or a certain type of person, that's when the audience grew. So it's kind of opposite in how you would think. If you make something too general, then no one's really going to see it. But if you really narrow down, then the audience gets way bigger. So it's pretty interesting how it works.
It's so true, but it's similar for example, because you had a business before, you have one now, the service-based business. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But it's same with the business. When you're starting, you have to have a very specific client avatar. So same with viewers, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I want to create content for everybody. And that's great. But if you create content for everybody, nobody's going to see it, like you said. So it has to be very specific. Like, who specifically do you have in mind? What value can you bring them, and how are you going to bring that value? And then obviously you can expand and that can change. But I think it's a very valuable lesson that a lot of people need to learn in order to be successful in content creation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So speaking of that, with your content creation journey, would you like to do a little recap of your career so far? Because I remember when we talked, it was so interesting, like just hearing about your journey thus far.
Yeah, I mean, specifically with the content creation or kind of the business background in general.
I would say just the college and the business background and into content creation, what you're doing
Yeah,
now. I just think it's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So, I out of high school chose to not pursue college because, in terms of the actual benefit, monetarily, maybe in terms of the content that I would be learning from college, I didn't see much value in that for myself. I think college requires a lot of self-awareness in terms of the choice to go or not. And I think a lot of people kind of mindlessly choose to do that, and then 4 years down the line find themselves in a lot of debt and not with a job that can pay that off very quickly. And I think that's a pretty rough situation to be in. And all the way to a happiness factor. I knew that if I went to college, I probably would not have been a very happy person because the lifestyle doesn't mesh with my lifestyle. I don't relate to that type of environment really. And I'm not saying everybody in college is partying all the time and doing all this stuff, but I just didn't see myself really working well and again being happy in that environment. So I chose not to do that. And out of high school, I had a nutrition bar company, and so I was running that. We were manufacturing locally, trying to build all that stuff out. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms. And I mean, it was an interesting journey and didn't pan out how I imagined it to, but I learned quite a bit from doing that. And so that's where I took a lot of the skills in digital marketing, web design, graphic design, all that fun stuff, and started doing that kind of freelance, just trying to build, some clients and do that kind of work for a while. And, that carried me to starting my own content stuff over the past couple of years, and now to where I am doing social media and coaching full time. So pretty fun, and I'm definitely a lot more fond of the current situation than the prior. So.
And with the nutrition bar company, because you're doing it straight out of high school, but right now you already have a social media presence. So like a lot of potential clients, also people you're coaching, I'm sure they'd be interested. Is that something you'd want to start again?
Yeah, so I get asked that a lot, and honestly, no, because dealing with physical products kind of is horrible. It's just such a burden that I am not super fond of. Which I'm a product kind of person. I love the idea of having a product, but I don't think I love having one to sell. You know, it's a lot easier to sell uh, a service and ideas and kind of a community rather than an actual thing that you have to make and regulate and certify and produce all that fun stuff. So I don't quite think I would jump back into that one.
What do you feel like the biggest challenge was with physical products? Because for me, like immediately what I think of, I've never sold a physical product. I think I've been just spoiled with the digital ones because it's
Yeah.
like no product tax. I don't think no returns on the digital one, so it's like very easy, free flow, get your money immediately. But on the physical one, what would you say are the biggest things you're like, you know what? No, I'm never dealing with this again.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I was dealing with not only suppliers for all the ingredients and packaging and whatever else, I was also dealing with the certifications. So we had a USDA organic certification, we had a gluten-free certification, and then non-GMO. And those are not meant for a small business. And I mean, when I'm talking small business, I'm talking I was hand making the product with my business partner. Um, and I mean, you're spending so much money just to basically get the logo for each one of these certifications, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, just dealing with that cost and you're just dropping cash on this thing to, quote unquote, certify your product. Uh, that's just really tough to keep up with. And I mean, when you're trying to sell these products, I mean, you're trying to sell to small stores and just produce in general, again, by hand and really grassroots kind of business. It's not easy to just drop, $1,200, $2,000 just to get the logo, and they're not even really helping you out with anything. So, just keeping up with all those costs is really, really the hardest part. But, you know, I definitely would recommend anybody that's doing a physical product. This isn't an anti-physical product rant by any means. Maybe for myself, but I have huge respect for that business structure. But I think showing your process and production and all that fun stuff through TikTok and Instagram and kind of involving people in that is definitely the way to go, because I don't think people really care about super perfect and polished anymore. People want to see what's really behind everything. So I think that's a pretty good lesson I could carry into the next projects if I ever did something like that. But yeah.
For sure. And I think a big shower of that is TikTok Shop. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see there's so many businesses that have just blown up over the past few months because they do the whole thing. Like I love the videos where they do lip glosses or like
Mm,
lip stains because it's like it's so satisfying to watch them do the formula and then just pour it via droplets into like little containers. But
yeah.
they are very transparent about it, and then they link their gloss or whatever it is they're selling. And I feel like that video goes viral, and then it's just so many new orders coming in.
Yeah. I haven't quite seen lip gloss talk quite yet, but I'll see some stuff for leather belts and handmade stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool. That's the kind of stuff that I like. I mean, I don't actually own a belt, but just in terms of seeing the
Hmm.
craftsmanship behind things, I think that's really fun to watch. So
I feel like also a very big issue with physical products, at least from what I've observed, is do you know Emma Chamberlain?
yeah, I know of her. I've never
Yeah.
watched anything from her, but I know the
She's
name.
like a prominent, influential content creator.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
now she's doing big things. But she has a coffee company, Chamberlain Coffee, a really good company. Like I like it. They're marketing everything, good product. But I think she shared in her recent podcast that or interview that her net worth is like a lot because she was in the Forbes creator list. So I was like looking at that. It was so cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she hasn't made a dollar from the company itself because everything she makes, she just invests back into it. So I feel
Mm,
like also a thing with physical products is because it takes like money, like you said, to get it certified or like for specific logos, but also just to make the product. That it's
Yeah.
kind of, you kind of invest everything you have into it until up a certain point, maybe like 3 years in, 5 years in, however long, and then maybe it starts making profit.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough to do because, I mean, like you said, you're just putting everything back into it. I mean, it's definitely a long-term kind of thing, and it's kind of frustrating to have to think about margins. Oh, I
Yeah.
make it for this much. How much do I have to sell it for? And then you kind of feel weird. I mean, I suppose in the same way with a service, you're pricing out your time and value, which is also super weird. Uh, but just trying to place value on this being my product that I'm trying to sell, so I'm gonna bump it up $20 and then people buy it kind of thing. It's super strange because as a consumer, personally, I'm probably the worst person ever to sell to because when I'm looking on Instagram, for example, and I see an Instagram ad, I'm not wondering, oh, would I enjoy this product, or oh, this seems really cool. I'm just looking at how they're trying to sell the product. I'm just looking at their marketing strategy and saying, huh, I wonder why they thought to put this here, put that there. I'm a horrible customer.
No, I understand that. For me too, especially when I see brand partnerships from other creators, like
Yeah,
love, listen to it, but I'm always like, oh, how are they doing this?
yeah.
I'm never like, oh, what a great product.
I know. You're never clicking the link in bio. You're always just thinking, huh, why are they doing this?
That's so interesting. Yeah. So speaking of physical products and then transitioning more into digital, into your coaching, what was that journey like, and how was that?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a really rewarding part of it because, again, not having to deal with so much businessy kind of stuff and more so just actually bringing value has been kind of the most undeniable transformation of, the content into an actual service and business that I can help people with. And, when I would start to receive messages of people talking about, oh, your videos have helped me, lose weight maybe, or have helped me stay focused, or, oh, I've ran every day for 3 months in a row. And seeing that kind of stuff is crazy because I'm like, man, that's exactly why I do this kind of thing, because I think it's so approachable for people to make those changes. And in my own life, going from being a very, very anxious person to not having that full control over myself in stressful situations, and all these different weaknesses that I had, going from that to where I am today, where I kind of have a lot of singularity in myself, where if I need to get something done, I do it. If I need to control myself in stressful situations, I do it. And I've built that up. But obviously, that isn't how it always was. And so that's why I get so passionate about helping other people do that same thing, because when you're in that position, when you're in point A, and you see, the guy on Instagram running every day, or you see this person eating healthy all the time, or, this really smart person, you don't think that that could be you because it seems like for them, that was just always them. But really emphasizing that that is almost never the case, gives people a little bit better of an understanding that it's very possible to make those changes and to be, that person that you might not believe you could have been before.
I think for this reason, I really love the before and after videos that people make, like especially really successful creators, whether they're coaches or just they've achieved an incredible physique or like fitness regimen. I just love seeing the before and after because I think what it comes down to is every person is special, but to get to like a result that you really love, you don't have to be special. Like you're just, everyone can do it. If you have a specific goal, you're working towards it consistently, so forth and so on.
No, 100%. I mean, I like the special thing because, again, I think that brings it back to the reason I love the daily stuff, because nobody is special with that. I know of somebody, we follow each other on Instagram, and she's been running for over 20 years every single day.
Oh.
And I'm 23, so that would be kind of hard to match. We'll get there one day, but you know, not a day has passed that she hasn't had to put in that same effort. And I think, again, the achievement is special, the consistency is special, but I guarantee you she would say, oh, I'm not special, I'm just consistent. I'm just
Mhm.
disciplined, I'm just doing these things. So I think that's really important for people to understand. Nobody's a superhero.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so easy in your mind, like you said, when you go on social media, to just idolize people, to give yourself kind of a leeway to make an excuse, like, oh, well, this person just special. Like, oh, she's just super pretty, he's just super strong, talented, whatever. And I can never get there because I'm not special like that, but that's not true at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, everybody feels like they're not special when they're trying to reach that point. And for anybody that I think is taking a genuine approach to maybe having that presence or having that platform, I can guarantee you they feel weird when they do get people watching them and responding. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I look at my Instagram, I think, what in the world is that? I'm not like, oh yeah, of course 248,000 people follow me. I'm like, that's insane, and I'm grateful for that. I'm very aware of that, and that's crazy to me because that wasn't always the case. I mean, it's been 23 years and some change that wasn't the case, and 2.5 weeks that it is the case. So I think, again, for anybody that is really trying to do something genuine and has had that long-term build up to that point, for them, it still doesn't feel like it's a them thing.
Hmm. But I think also the biggest thing with social media and some clients that I work with that are just starting out, it's like it can be a very frustrating thing with the views, the followers. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, I got 100 views on this one. But if you really think about it, can you fit 100 people in a room?
mm,
Like in my room, I can't because I like my space is like small, minimalistic, compact, So I feel like with social media in general, like if you go viral, it's like, oh yeah, 4 million views, 30 million views, but it's 30 million eyes, like 30 million people.
yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy. I have some friends from France that live here now, and they said some of their friends that are still in France were telling them about my video, and they didn't know that they knew me. And I'm like, dude, what in the world is that? Just people from everywhere saying, oh, I saw this. And then, other people getting millions of views on their videos, making fun of me or, copying exactly what I said. And then
Hmm.
I'm getting those videos sent to me. I'm like, what in the world? This is so insane. So insane.
And I think the biggest thing with that, because also 30 million, 37 million is the population of California. Like that's where I live. It's like every person there has watched it. Crazy. But I think the biggest thing with social media is just realizing that no matter how many people are watching your videos, whether it be 300, 3,000, 3 million, you're still making an impact. You're still sharing your message and you're making like a footprint in the world. And it may take a while to get up to where you want it to be so that your impact or your message is really heard, but also maybe before you reach that point, there's some things you need to build up, like to make sure that you're really ready for it too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think even just for peace of mind for yourself in that journey is, you know, I can thankfully look back and say, okay, it wasn't doing well for all this time, but I can look back in my account and see 700 something videos of, the best quality of my ability at the time. And that's pretty cool to see. When I see somebody with a ton of followers and there's like 3 posts, I'm like, that's cool. But I feel like there's kind of a cheapness to that experience, right? There's a cheapness to that journey. But, when I see somebody with 1 million followers, but I also scroll through their account and see 1,400 videos. There's a guy who's really big in the fitness space, and he was blowing up a long time ago, and I was like, I wonder how this happened. I scrolled through his YouTube, and I mean, hundreds and hundreds of 10-minute, 12-minute long videos, and I'm like, you know what? Fair enough. That right there is absolutely deserved, and I think that's cool to see from somebody. And so, knowing that you've built up that library of effort, that that kind of makes it happen, and it's cool to know that you've done that. So I think it's very closely related to an analogy I kind of came up with. I was actually telling one of my clients this, and I said, essentially, when you are putting in this work and not getting that result. And, you've got all these overwhelming things kind of burdening you, but you're still putting in that work. It's like you're adding money to a bank account every day, and your account still says 0 on it for some reason. And you just keep adding and it still says 0. And then one day you log in, it says 1,000,000. And you're like, what in the world? How is this even real? And it's like, well, you've been compounding all this interest. You've been adding to the stack. It just didn't show it. But now there comes a day when it does show it and you're like, oh shoot, I'm rich. And by rich, it's, experience and lessons learned, right? But I think that's a really special thing.
For sure. Thank you for that metaphor, I guess. I really like it. I'm gonna internalize it. I really like that because it also reminds me of a story. And I think this is a really great point to kind of finish. But I saw a video of this one woman. She was talking about how she had a dream of starting a business, but she was living paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
So basically she had a son too. So she made her lifestyle just as cheap as possible. And every single month she'd send thousands of dollars to a bank account, but she wouldn't check the numbers or anything. And then some years go by, I think 12 years, and it was a long time ago. So obviously the value of that money was more. But then she logs into the bank account, it's $68,000 or maybe 268,000. But it's
Yeah.
a lot. And then she's like, wow, because she didn't really feel that progress, but up until that point when she actually logged in. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really cool example. I really like that. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
Nah, I mean, I was just going to comment on that. I think delayed gratification is really just a huge emphasis in that conversation. Setting your future self up to be in the best position is one of the best things you can do now. I guess a pretty funny thing when I was younger and I would get a birthday card and there would be, $20 in there or something. I would put the money back in the card, put it back in the envelope, and save it in my room somewhere. So then later on, when I was going through things in my room, I would find it and I would see, oh my gosh, $20. I didn't even spend this or anything. This is awesome. And so, I think if you can apply that to your actual life, again, making that daily investment, adding to that stack, doing the things that are going to make you better, that are going to make your mind a little bit stronger, make you a little bit healthier. You can't expect that to just pay off right away. You can't expect that to be easy. I think things being difficult is absolutely a blessing, because if everything you wanted could just be achieved in 30 days, then what you want probably isn't worth much, And I think appreciating how difficult life is, but building a tolerance to that difficulty on top of that. I mean, that's a huge key right there that I think people can kind of take away.
For sure. I feel like everyone listening is going to be like, oh my gosh, I want to work with Cru now. Where do I sign up? So motivational. It's like a TED Talk. I love it.
Oh, man.
I'll be sure to leave a link to your coaching in the I guess the coaching interest form, the intake form. Or what
Yes.
would you like to share?
Yeah,
That one?
absolutely. All my information and everything is just crumahoney.com. So you can go on there and all the links, the coaching, the program, the merch, all that good stuff is on there. And yeah, that's where to find it. And social media is just Cru Mahoney on pretty much everything. So
And your podcast too. Do you want to share about that? I love the name.
yeah. The new podcast is Boy Dinner. We've got about 6 episodes out. It's just me and some friends, talking about a lot of self-improvement type of stuff and joking around and, everything in between. So it's been a lot of fun trying to build that up and make some content around it and give a little bit more of the conversational, fun side of myself instead of just some serious running videos. So I'm trying to make it happen.
Boy, didn't love the name. Well, thank you so much for being in this podcast. I really appreciate it. I think it was an amazing episode. I learned a lot. I hope it was an insightful conversation for you too.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. We'll definitely have to do it again.
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Launch to success with Vera.
V.